Hello! Earlier this week, the long list for this year's International Booker Prize was announced. Very exciting. This is the award which celebrates the best book of fiction translated into English and published in the previous year. And if you need a reminder, these are the 13 books which are nominated for this year's award. And I already made a video talking about all these different books and the contents of each of them. So I'll put a link to that video below. If you've not watched it already, I'm very excited to be reading and reviewing all of these different books, and of course I love the contents of all of this fiction, but I am also really interested in geeky information and fun facts about the books as a whole, and how this list compares to previous years and iterations of the prize. And very handily this week, the Booker Prize has published an article on their website called 13 Things You Need to Know About This Year's International Booker Prize. I think there are 13 things because there are 13 books of fiction on the long list. And some of this information I didn't know when I made that previous video. So I'll put a link to this article in the description below, but I thought it'd be fun to go through these 13 different things and talk about them because there are some really interesting facts here. I love at the bottom of this article, there is this map of the world that shows the country of origin of all of the different authors. And I just like how this looks like a kind of Mission Impossible style path to travel around the world. First off, there are 11 different languages represented on the long list. These are from works originating from 12 different countries, and there are 3 languages which have never appeared on the long list before. So there is a book translated from the Bulgarian, which is Time Shelter, from the Tamil, which is Pyre, and from Catalan, which is Boulder. And as Bob the Booker noted in his reaction video, it's quite surprising that Catalan has never been a language that has been represented in the International Booker Prize before. But it's really interesting, in this article, they note that only 20 books are translated from Catalan into English each year, or published, that are actually published in the UK. There is a whopping 54-year age gap between the oldest and youngest authors on the long list. So there is Maryse Conde, who is 89 years old, and there is Amanda Svensson, who is only 35 years old. Also on the long list, the translator Reuben Woolley is only 24 years old. There is also the very first husband and wife author and translator team on this long list. That is Maryse Conde and her husband, Richard Philcox. Now, Maryse Conde has a degenerative neurological condition, which means it is difficult for her to see. So she actually dictated aloud this entire novel to her husband, Richard Philcox, who then translated it into English. 2 of the authors have been nominated for the prize before. So Maryse Conde was listed for the prize back in 2015 when there was a different version of this prize which awarded the body of work of an author, rather than an individual title. Also, Clemens Meyer was longlisted for this prize back in 2017 for his novel Bricks and Mortar. Also, 4 of the translators have been listed for the prize before. So there's Nicholas Smalley, who I talked about in my video, and Katie Derbyshire, and also Jeremy Tiang and Frank Wynne. And also, Frank Wynne and Jeremy Tiang were judges of last year's International Booker Prize. 2 of the novels on the list have had a long gap between their original publication and their translation into English. So While We Were Dreaming was published in German in 2006, and Whale was published in Korean way back in 2003. Translator Nicholas Smalley will be doing double duty this year, double duty she, that sounds better, doesn't it? Because she is the translator of the nominated novel, A System So Magnificent It Is Blinding, but she is also a publicist for the publisher And Other Stories that published Boulder. The continent most represented on the list is, of course, Europe. So there are 8 different entries from European countries. There is Sweden, there's Bulgaria, Norway, Ukraine, France, Germany, and Spain. Now, I'm not entirely sure why European countries most often get the largest representation on the list for this prize. I mean, it is probably because the books which are most often translated into English are from different European countries. I think that's probably, the actual reality of it. I mean, it's sort of a shame that more of the world doesn't get more representation in different years, but that's just this way that it kind of plays out. Though French is the most represented language on the list, really interestingly, the authors from these different French novels originate from different places. So you have Laurent Mauvignier, who was born and raised in France, but there is also Maryse Conde, who was born in Guadeloupe in the Caribbean, and then there is GauZ, who was born in the Ivory Coast. Coincidentally, 2 of the authors on the list share a former career, formerly working as security guards. So Clemens, Meyer, and GauZ. And GauZ's novel Standing Heavy is actually told from the perspective of 3 different black security guards in Paris. A few of the authors have careers in addition to writing. So GauZ is also a photographer and the editor of a satirical newspaper in the Ivory Coast. Mian Kwan is also a film director. And Amanda Svensson is a translator herself, and she has translated into Swedish the books of Ali Smith. For 3 of the authors, these are their first books to have appeared in English. So there is GauZ, there is Jingzhi, and Amanda Svensson. Really interestingly, Andrey Kurkov has written in Russian throughout his entire career because his parents were Russian speakers, and about a third of the population of Ukraine speaks Russian. But following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine last year, Kurkov has said he will no longer be writing in Russian. He will only be writing in Ukrainian. His most recent book, published last year, was called Diary of an Invasion. The author Purimal Murugan appears on the list, although at one point he announced that he was going to stop writing completely. He's written many books. Some of them have been quite controversial, and following protests, he announced in 2015 that he was going to stop writing books, and he also wanted his publisher to withdraw all of his books from circulation, but that changed in 2017 when he brought out a new novel. So that just shows you can't stop a writer from doing what they were born to do. So those are the 13 things. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them, if you enjoy geeky information like I do. But if you've noticed any other interesting things about the long list as a whole, please let me know about that in the comments below. It would be fun to get even more facts or things that we might not even have noticed so far. But now I am really excited about getting stuck into reading all of these different books and discussing them with you. I'd love to hear about as well which book you are going to start reading, or which book you are excited to read next from this long list. And I will speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.